Hello, and welcome to this eCampus News webcast. My name is Andrew Barber. I'm a senior contributing editor here at eCampus News, and I'll be acting as the moderator for today's presentation, which is sponsored by TechSmith, and it's titled Teaching Faculty to Flip, Best Practices from the MAST Institute at the University of Northern Colorado. Now, before I introduce our guest speakers, I want to take a few moments to highlight a couple of items. First, today's event will be recorded, so you don't have to worry about trying to scribble down notes to keep up. In a couple of days, we'll send you an email that will contain a link to the recorded event, and you'll also be able to download a PDF of the presentation from that same link. And second, please ask questions. Don't feel as if you have to wait until the end. At any time during the presentation, if you have a question, just type it into the Q&A box on your console and hit the submit button. And I'm hoping that we'll have about 10 minutes at the end when our speakers can answer your question. We also have a chat function which you can launch from the brown group chat icon at the bottom of your screen. Please use the chat to talk among yourselves or even to contact me or the eCampus News team if you have any technical issues or other concerns. In fact, if you just want to kick this off, why don't you take a second right now to use the group chat to tell everyone where you're dialing in from today. It's always fun to see how diverse the audience can be. I do have one favor to ask, though, about the chat. Please don't use the chat to ask questions of our speakers. They simply aren't going to have time to keep an eye on the chats as they give their presentation. If you want to ask a question of the presenters, please use the Q&A panel instead, and we'll get to those at the end. With that out of the way, let me introduce our speakers. Dr. Jerry Overmeyer is Mathematics and Science Outreach Coordinator at the University of Northern Colorado and has teaching experience in both secondary school and college mathematics. And he's the coordinator for MAST Web Connect, and MAST stands for Math and Science Teaching. He's also a pioneer and expert in flipped learning. In fact, he's the director of the Flipped Learning Academy and the creator of and facilitator for the flipped learning community, the learning network of more than 27,000 teachers who are using flipped learning. Our second speaker, Matt Dennis, is an account executive at TechSmith. Over the past 6 years, he's worked with schools and universities all over the country, and in fact all over the world, on digital learning initiatives. You'll often find Matt at national conferences that promote online learning, where he'll be evangelizing the use of TechSmith products. Welcome, Jerry and Matt. It's a real honor to have you here today. Jerry, why don't you get us started?
Hey, welcome. It's great to be here today. My name is Jerry Overmeyer. Thanks for the introduction, Andrew. Like you said, I'm at the University of Northern Colorado at the Mathematics and Teaching Institute. And it's great to have Matt here today. And Matt, I know you're in the Fontaine department, so one of the things you could do is anytime you want to just chime in. I'm a pretty smart guy, but I can be an airhead sometimes. So if I just start stumbling over my words, feel free to chime in. And before I do the goals, Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure can, Jerry. Thank you. Matt Dennis from TechSmith Corporation, and we're excited to bring this message and share Jerry's story with you today.
Thanks. So some of the goals we're going to look at is we want to learn about this Flipped Learning Academy that I started here at, I'm going to call it UNC, which I know a lot of people think is University of North Carolina, but no, UNC is University of Northern Colorado here at UNC. And I just want to share a little bit about how we went about doing it and some of the things that we learned. So if maybe at your university you're looking to do something similar, you might get some good ideas. So I want to do a poll just to get an idea of where people are at. So the way the question is phrased is, what is your experience with creating your own online videos? So it's A, I've never made an online video. Here, I can actually go to the next slide here. So you can actually start, I think it's just live. You just put in your answer. Yes. So what is your experience with creating your own online videos? So you've never made an online video. I have a feeling we're going to get a pretty good cross-section here. I played around a little bit, but have never posted videos. The third option is I'm comfortable making videos and I have posted them. And the last option is my videos have over 1,000 views. So if you have done this before and have done this for classes, then your students maybe have watched this over 1,000 times. So, Andrew, is there a way for me to know when to go to the next slide to look at the results? Or can I jump back and forth here?
Yeah, I would give them probably 30 seconds to answer the question, and then
30 seconds.
Jump onto. Yeah, I think. But you're pretty much there. I think at this point most people will have answered the question, so you could probably move on to the next slide.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask Google to find the Jeopardy theme and play the Jeopardy theme. But, I just think we're good. Okay. Okay, so quite a few people have answered. Yay, and there's the results. Oh, okay, great. So we've got about 60% saying that they've never made an online video or they've played around a little bit but have not posted. So that's good to know. And then we've got about 40% saying that they have posted and a few people who have, looks like they're pretty experienced with this. So with the online videos, what's pretty amazing with this, I think, is that just 10 years ago, I was asked to, as a grad student at Colorado State University, to make some online videos for our MAST classes. And it took 10 times as long as it does today, because back then you had to get special software to record it, and you had to have a special tablet, and then you had to have a special way to save the program, and you had to have different formats depending if people were going to view it on an Apple computer or a PC computer. Remember, this was before YouTube. So, and then I literally had to put the files onto a hard drive and walk across campus and give it to our IT people at CSU, and they would upload the videos to our server. And I was just thinking, I bet one day we'll be able to hit record, hit save, hit upload, and your video will be up. And that's where we're at now. So making your own videos is not really the hard part anymore. The hard part of creating a flipped classroom is what are you going to do in class? So let me go to the next slide here. So a little bit about the Flipped Learning Academy and why flipped learning. Well, the way I got into flipped learning was John Bergman and Aaron Sams are really kind of credited as being the modern pioneers of flipped learning. And they were in mountainous Colorado, and about 6 years ago, I just stumbled across what they were doing. They had a little web page, and I was like, that is an incredible idea, this whole flipped classroom concept. And so I asked them, as part of my new position as outreach coordinator, I said, hey, can I start a professional learning network for flipped learning? And they said, yeah, absolutely. We're getting too many emails. Go for it. And so, like Andrew said, the flipped learning community has over 27,000 members. And I don't know if there's a way you can share that website with the audience, but it is just flippedclassroom.org. And so, I don't know how much people really know about what flipped learning is. I think people know that it means you're putting lecture on video, but really the reason for flipped learning is that universities, even just 20 years ago, just think pre-internet, or think about when you went to college, if you went to college over 20 years ago like I did, that the university was where all the knowledge was kept. In the heads of your professors or your instructors was where all the knowledge was. And the internet really has destroyed that paradigm. And so colleges need to adapt to this because you can learn almost anything off of YouTube. And even, I mean, scholars from all over are starting to say this, that like even people at Harvard are saying, we better adapt. If we're just offering lectures, people are going to stop coming here. And so I think all colleges need to kind of get out of this sit and get model, or else YouTube is just going to put us out of business in a way. So the Flipped Learning Academy, I started a couple of years ago. Our university had a call for innovation proposals, and so I put in a proposal, and it fortunately got funded, and it's been wonderful. And what it does is it provides for 30 faculty members here at UNC to create a flipped classroom. And so going into it, me and my colleague, Dr. Nisa Yesnes, who's been great with helping me on this, when we were creating this, we were like, what's the best approach to take? So one thing we knew right away is that all the faculty that are going to do this are going to come in at all different technology levels. So if you're thinking about creating something like a flipped learning professional development for faculty, realize that everyone's got different technology levels. But also keep in mind the main question, and I don't know, I probably should have put this on a slide, because this is the mantra of people doing flipped classrooms, is what's the best use of your face-to-face class time? So before you do any kind of flipping, think about what is the best use of your face-to-face class time, and just start making a list, really. So let's talk about, so the way we recruited for the Flipped Learning Academy is, fortunately, we were given some funds so that if a faculty member wanted to participate, that they would get a course buyout, meaning they would have to teach one less class that semester, or else they could do it as an overload and get a stipend. So there were some financial incentives, in a sense, to participate, to basically, pay instructors for their time in doing this. So, so for the recruitment, it was basically, we sent out emails to the campus-wide. There was, a few instructors that I knew that I wanted to ask first. And it was really on a first-come, first-served basis with all our instructors. So see if maybe your college or university can offer like a course buyout or overload stipends. Another possibility might be to offer some sort of summer support on this. So I want to ask a question now of the audience, and that is, in your opinion, what percentage of college teaching should be direct instruction by the teacher? And I'm not going to clarify that, so just go ahead and answer that, A, B, C, D, and then we'll discuss that a little bit.
Hold on. Jerry, you need to advance to the slide where they can actually input their
Oh, yes, thank you. Boop, there we are. Cool.
Jerry, while we're waiting for the audience to answer, we did have a question from the audience someone in the audience asking just for do you have a quick definition of what a flipped classroom is? I think he really wants to get a basic understanding of what the approach is.
Yeah, so flipped learning originally, the original definition, and the reason it's called flipped is because it kind of took the tack that lecture is probably not the best use of class time. So the original definition was flip, homework, and lecture. And so it meant that you put your lectures onto video and you put those up available for the students, and that your students watch those lectures outside of class time. And then class time is where you do what was traditionally the homework. And this has advantages because, well, for one, when you watch a lecture live, you only get one chance to see it. And if you miss it or miss part of it, you can't rewind and things like that. So there's one hopeful advantage. The other advantage is with homework, a lot of times, you know, students of all ages, it doesn't matter what grade you are, if you get stuck on homework, you know, unless you've got involved parents who are knowledgeable on the subject, sometimes you're stuck and you can't really do much. And so by actually doing the homework in class, you've got your peers and your teacher there to help. But I think flipped classroom, that's what we kind of call flipped class 101 now. But flipped learning has really evolved into this term that says in-class lectures, probably not the best use of your class time. So, but students still need direct instruction at some times. So it says, what parts of your class, that direct instruction, can you put into the individual space? Instead of giving it as a group space, you put it online and students watch it when they're ready, when they need it. And then in class doesn't have to just be, let's just work on homework in class. It can be all these other things such as inquiry-based learning, project-based learning, and it can really hit on a lot of 21st century skills. So let's take a look at the poll. Oh, cool. Interesting. Okay, so, we're split pretty good. So most people agree that we need a little more than 10% direct instruction, but most people are saying from 11 to 39, and then quite a few people are saying 40 to 79. And then 3.3% say between 80 and 100. So, you know, really this was kind of a loaded trick question because there's so many what are you talking about in this question. And a lot of it depends on the type of course and what's going on and what defines direct instruction. So flipped learning kind of has the philosophy, if you will, that students still need some sort of direct instruction, whether it's how do I log into my computer or how do I don't know, I'm a math teacher, so I'm thinking about how do I use the distance formula type of a thing. So direct instruction like that. I'm not saying that they can't be given an activity to discover the distance formula, but to have some sort of direct instruction to say, you know, here's our definition of terms and here's how we're going to do it. Or direct instruction of just, this is how our class is going to work. Or this is how you read an advanced textbook. Or direct instruction of, hey, if you're going to read this Shakespeare play, these are the things that I'd like you to look at, things like that. So direct instruction can take all kinds of forms. And I think if I were to answer this one, I would probably have done the 40 to 79. That's because I teach mathematics, and I think in math, there's quite a bit of stuff that you just got to tell students, this is how it works. And the other times, they can practice and do all that stuff. So, I want to make a nice plug. This is the perfect audience for this. For the first annual, I'm hoping it's first annual, Higher Education Flipped Learning Conference, and should be a link right below the little window, Flipped Learning Academy Conference. So we're going to have a conference this summer in Greeley, Colorado, June 8th through 10th. We're located about an hour's drive north of the Denver airport. We're going to do a little evening trip to Rocky Mountain National Park. And it's, you know, the conference will allow higher education, college, flipped classroom folks to exchange information talk about, all things of flipped learning in colleges, discuss the future of flipped learning in higher ed. And it's for instructors, faculty, grad students. And we're hoping to get a couple hundred instructors or faculty from all over the country to come to this. So check out that website. We are taking conference proposals now to speak at that conference. So if you have anything with flipped learning in college that you would like to share, whether it's any kind of research you've done or you just want to tell your flipping story of how you've tried to flip a class, and we are totally, everyone I've met doing flipped learning, we love to share what doesn't work. Because a lot of times people are like, yay, flipped learning is the greatest thing ever. And then something doesn't work, and it's like, oh, let's figure out what happened there. What didn't work? So, if you want to submit a thing that said, I tried flipping in my college class and failed miserably, we would love to hear your story on that. So, here's my little plug for Flipped Learning Academy Conference. And Andrew, how are we doing on time?
Well, we have, you're at the 21-minute mark, so probably another 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so before you hand it over to Matt. So you're doing fine.
Great. All right. Sounds good. So I want to talk a little bit about, how we taught faculty to flip in our professional development. And so the goal we set up for faculty was they're part of the deal. And we did a whole, memorandum of understanding. Here's the benefits for you. Here's the benefits for the university. Here's what's expected of you. Here's what's expected of us. Almost like a contract like that. But the main goal was that they would create a flipped classroom that they would teach in the next semester. So our first cohort was in spring of 2015. So they taught their flipped class in fall of 2015. And then our second cohort, they did their training with us in the fall of 2015. So they've just started doing their flipped classes this semester. And then we've got our final cohort, because it's a 2-year project, that we're doing the training with now, and they will do their flipped courses next semester. Now, there were a few exceptions to that. There were a few people who basically had already done flipped learning on their own, and they just wanted to come in and kind of hone some of their skills, so they kind of flipped as they went. And a few people who just, weren't going to teach the course that they wanted to flip till like a year later. So they, a few exceptions to that. So our professional development, basically, it is almost like the participants are taking a 3-credit college course. Is kind of the way we're approaching it. So the course is kind of flipped, but it's also hybrid. We meet face-to-face every other week, and probably would like to meet face-to-face more often, but just, faculty are so busy that was the only realistic thing we could do. But we put weekly assignments on our Blackboard learning management system. And so some of the things that we discussed is, like I said, the first thing we did was said, what's the ideal use of your face-to-face class time? And we had faculty fill out sort of a survey of like, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Because I've seen bad flipped classrooms. And my best example of that is I talked to a graduate student, and this was part of my doctoral dissertation on flipped classrooms, was I talked to a grad student into, I asked him, I said, hey, you want to teach flipped classroom? He said, sure. What do I got to do? And I kind of gave him the definition, and he said, okay, cool. And but he took it really literally. So I went to observe his class one day, and this is what his class was. It was, all right, class, this is that flipped classroom that researcher's doing. So you watched his videos, and so just work on homework. And yeah, so that was about it. So that was his flipped classroom. So he, of course, I think he just took things too literally. That he was supposed to be up and about going, here's the homeworks we need to work on, you know, let's get in groups and all this. But so we wanted to make sure that our faculty were going to really create an engaging experience for their students. So we did talk a lot about what's your ideal use of class time. So I'd say we probably did maybe 60, 70, 80% of the professional development was not about making videos, but was about how are you going to use your class time. And so some of the things in that meant, you know, how are you going to prepare your students for this? How are you going to get your students engaged? Things like that. We also talked about, but we did make videos, and we threw them in really quick and said, you need to make and post an online video by week 4, I think it was. And so we had them using Camtasia was the main program that they used. We built a screencasting studio with all the bells and whistles of how to make a video, but we found that most faculty actually prefer to just make videos in their office or at their home office. So we supplied them with either document cameras that plug into a computer or some kind of tablet device. But really the only tool you need is like a software program, like a Camtasia type thing. Here's a couple surprises that we learned for people that are like, did you learn anything you weren't expecting? That there's often been talk about should instructors make their own videos or can they use other people's videos? And I think the biggest key with that is I'm always a proponent that the instructor should make their own video because they know what they want to talk about. They're the expert and they want to talk about how they want their class. So, but on the other end, if you don't make your own videos, college students might feel a little almost ripped off, kind of like, wait a minute, why am I paying all this tuition for? But again, it's how you present yourself and how you present your in-class time. But anyway, I got off topic there. What I wanted to talk about was whether you should put your face in your videos. And that's been people doing these videos for years have talked about that. And what I think we've kind of found that if you're teaching something that's very concrete, just trying to get knowledge across, like mathematics or physics, that you probably don't need your face in the video. But if you're teaching something that's more impassioned, like political science or maybe something in psychology or history, and you want your students to see your facial expressions, then you should really put your face in the video. So in a sense, it's sort of like for the natural sciences, no face. Social sciences, yes face. Another surprise we learned is as an instructor, if you're going to do aspects of flipped learning, you don't need to ever tell your students that you're doing flipped learning. You can simply say, you know, hey, I realize that, I'll just think of like the college algebra class I taught. You know, you're used to instructors working a lot of problems in class where the instructor's up in front working through the problems, and then you go home and practice the problems. Well, I've realized I'm going to do it the opposite. What I'm going to do is me working the problems, I'm going to make videos of those. And then you're in class, you're going to be working on some of those problems, but now you've got your classmates and me to help you. And that's all I said. So I never used the F word, flipped. The other thing we learned is college students need to be trained on how to watch these videos, that if you just assign them and say, hey, my lecture's on video, see you tomorrow. That's not a good way to approach this. So even college students, you should from day one say, you should actually play a video in class and like maybe stop and rewind and be like, hey, I didn't understand what I just said, and be taking notes and talk to them about your expectations of that. Let's move on here. Oh yeah, so here's a video clip I want to play. This, of course, is Stephen Colbert. He used to play a character named Stephen Colbert, but now he just plays himself. But he had Salman Khan of the Khan Academy. And I assume a lot of people have heard of the Khan Academy. And so Salman Khan of the Khan Academy, he kind of was in the right place at the right time. When YouTube came out, he just started putting up instructional videos. And now his videos have like, I want to say like 100 billion views or something like that. It's pretty incredible. No, it can't be 100 billion. Okay, maybe 1 billion views. But he was on the Colbert Report about 3 or 4 years ago, and this is what he said. And so just listen and to hear what he says and think about this. So I'll go to the next slide, and hopefully we can play this for everyone.
If people watch these videos at home, why do we need teachers? That's another thing. Like, we can crush those Wisconsin teachers with this, right? They're useless.
And this is what we, if I'm a teacher, I don't want to give the same lecture 100. It's crazy to have everyone giving the same lecture if you can, you do it one time. And so what we're seeing in classrooms is it's kind of liberating teachers. So instead of giving one-size-fits-all lectures to a bunch of students, some of them lost, some of them bored. Now they can assign this as homework, and then the kids can come into the class and actually do homework there and actually interact and actually take advantage of the fact that there's actually people in the room there that you can get help from.
So homework becomes room work, and at home you get to watch YouTube?
Yes. Yes, exactly right.
That's the greatest school I've ever heard of.
Yes.
Well, Salman Khan, thank you so much. Salman Khan of the Khan Academy. We'll be right back.
All right, hopefully that video played for everyone okay. Andrew or Matt, did it play okay?
I believe it did. That seems to be coming across fine for me.
Great, okay. So, he asked a great question there. Well, what's interesting is Salman Khan, he's describing flipped learning, right, which is kind of cool. But Colbert asked the question, why do we need teachers? And as much as we can laugh at that, there is, a little grain of truth to this, that in this YouTube age, why do we need teachers? And John Bergman, one of the founders of flipped learning, actually, he said, if you can be replaced by a YouTube video, you probably should be, which is a kind of a harsh thing to say. So think about, as a teacher or an instructor, what needs to change. And let me give you a little story about, I was asked to teach of how I probably could have been replaced. So about 10 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I was asked to teach Calculus 3. And I was thinking, oh, shit, I barely passed Calc 3 10 years earlier, but I was like, yeah, I'll do Calc 3. And I had to teach that course in a purely lecture style. And the reason is because I was not, all I was the teacher. I was barely a content expert. I was not a learning specialist. I was not a pedagogical content expert. There was no way I could have facilitated flipped learning. So I literally had to go into class and lecture with my back to the class, talking about vector spaces and 3D and all this, just thinking, please don't ask questions, please don't ask questions. And there's no way I could have taught that course flipped. So think about, though, if you have a flipped class, how much better it would be for the students, because then I could have put my, and the reason I say that class could have been replaced is you could probably go on YouTube right now and Google Calculus 3 lectures. And I bet you'd find 100 different things. And you could find an instructor who just explained the concepts of Calc 3, and you could learn it on your own, and you'd never have to go to lecture. And so you, in a sense, why even go to college, right? But imagine if I had a successful flipped classroom there of why do we need teachers? Because Calc 3, well, a lot of things, I mean, basically in college, basically any class a student takes, that's the hardest thing they've ever done. So to just get it through YouTube is going to be really, 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 really hard. So having class time very, you know, if I did Calc 3 again, I'd have class time that was flipped. It would be cooperative, collaborative, supportive, and a lot of it would be looking at some of these 21st century skills, and I don't know how much the attendees here have ever kind of glanced at 21st century skills, and I think almost all of them really can be hit with flipped learning, such as creative thinking, critical thinking, collaborating, communicating. One of the 21st century skills is media literacy. So if you're just lecturing and giving homework, you're not really helping them be media savvy. Or technology literacy. If you do flipped learning, you can use a lot of technology in classrooms. You know, another thing is flipped learning can just be fun. A great example of that is one of the biology teachers here at the university who did flipped learning. She was teaching, I believe, and I could be wrong, and if you're a biologist, I apologize if I'm totally butchering how this works, but she wanted to model how bacteria can move. And apparently bacteria, they can either go side to side or straight ahead. I'm not sure how that all works. But before she did flipped, she would just give a lecture and say, here's how bacteria move. It can move like this and this. But now what she did, since that was on video and students watched it, she actually took her class and said, all right, class, we're going to go outside. We're going to be bacteria. I'm going to be a moldy crust of bread, and you're going to be the bacteria. And you have to move like bacteria to get to me, the moldy crust of bread. So there's no way she could have done that if she hadn't had her direct instruction, like online in a flipped environment. So we're getting close to my time ending up. You know, before I move on to the next slide, you know, pros and cons of flipped learning. Cons is, you know, it's hard. It's scary to change. I mean, a lot of us got into teaching or got into academia because we're good lecturers, and it's scary and hard to give up classroom control like that. And I remember, you know, after I do a flipped classroom for college algebra, I'd be exhausted because I'd be running around the room, you know, helping this, and I have to be like, oh wait, how are you stuck? And oh no, yeah, and as opposed to just giving a lecture. And so it's difficult. You know, some of the cons also is people that just are putting lecture on video, but they're not really thinking about what's the best use of class time. And if you don't think about what's the best use of class time at first, then it might not go so well. So let's see, one more thing. You know, before I move on, I want to just talk about with flipped classrooms that to take it slow. If you hear about, you know, teachers that have completely flipped their classroom, most likely they did not do that in 1 or 2 semesters. Most likely it's been a multi-year process. And like, so just start slow. Do something like just a basic lecture, put it on video, and then do something active in class. Just start off slow. So one last poll is, how will you check to ensure that students have watched your videos? You can answer A. Oh, here, I'll go to the next one. Online diagnostics or assessments, in-class assessments, such as, pop quizzes. You'll have some sort of way to check that they've come to class prepared. Or the last one is check that your students have watched your videos. It's really not, that's the student's responsibility, not yours. And, all these answers are perfectly valid. This is an opinion question. There's no right or wrong answer. And so let's take a look at the results here. Hey, we've got an exact tie for the first two options. But it's spread out pretty good. Come to class prepared, class assessments, online diagnostics. Wow, that's really split. But that's kind of cool. Because I think a lot of it depends on your style as a teacher, the type of students you have, the subject you're teaching, whether it's a 100 level class or maybe it's a 400 level class. I think for my college algebra, I originally had it as it's the student's responsibility. It's not my responsibility. If they come to class unprepared, then that's not my problem. It's theirs. But then I realized I'm asking them to work in groups. So if some people in the group have seen the material and some people in the group have not, that's not fair to the people in the group who did their homework, in a sense. So I started doing in-class assessments. Like I would just be like, hey, we're having a pop quiz first thing when we get in. I also tried doing some online quizzes. Those, I never really got those to work too well, though. So, oh yeah, here's a last couple things. I was thinking about if you do flipped learning, student evaluations is something that you always look at in college. And I was thinking about if you do a flipped class, these are not the student evaluations we want. That, Dr. Overmeyer has their lectures on video, so you don't even really have to go to class. Or college is a ripoff. I could have learned everything on YouTube. Instead, these are the kind of student evaluations that we're hoping for. And these are, these would be wonderful to get, but so-and-so is awesome. The stuff we did in class was always engaging and relevant. So notice that the things that we want on student evals are talking about in class. The instructor was very knowledgeable, and we really had time to explore the material and have meaningful conversations. Or having the basic course material in easy-to-understand online videos was very helpful. It really complemented the in-class activities. Notice that I said it didn't replace the in-class activities. It really complemented the in-class activities. And then the last one was the teacher-created online videos were great because I could view them at my own pace and pause and rewind as needed. So hopefully this gives you a good overview. I know it's impossible to talk about everything with flipped learning at the college level, but feel free to contact me. Just Google my name. My email will be on there. I'd love to see some people here at the conference this summer. It would be wonderful. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt from TechSmith, and he's going to share a little bit about how TechSmith products can help with flipped learning.
Good stuff. Thank you, Dr. Overmeyer. Again, I had a chance to hear some of your message last fall at one of the national EdTech conferences, and the message is great, so we appreciate that. Let's just take a couple quick minutes and you talk about TechSmith. We've been a leader in screen recording and screen capture technology for quite some time. You're probably familiar with a couple of our tools, Camtasia and Snagit. We're a Midwestern software company that was founded in 1987. And we've kind of been around a lot of the pioneers. Jerry himself have picked up our tools, and really become kind of a trusted choice by colleges and universities across the United States and worldwide. And you know, Dr. Overmeyer really touched on the reason why that is, right? Yep. Let's switch my slides here. You know, part of that message, at least from our standpoint, is that, you know, we really understand that technology is just part of the equation in this whole journey of flipped education. And that journey looks like it's different for everyone else. And again, Jerry, feel free to chime in on this if you'd like. At different shapes and sizes. So, you know, you kind of need some biteable chunks that you can get into, some technology tools that don't really interfere from that. You know, Dr. Overmeyer alluded to the video being, you know, one of the easiest portions of it, but sometimes it can be intimidating. So, you know, some little tips, some best practices we see from a lot of the colleges and universities we work with. You know, this idea of, okay, I want to create a quality interactive content. You know, so you're making your video. You sit down to make your video. Where do I start? What does that look like? Is that just recording the lecture? You know, going beyond this idea that interactivity is just like emailing my class or like a forum thread, something they might comment on. You know, how do I get beyond just using that third-party content and put myself in there? And, you know, we stress that, and we hear that, you know, creating your own custom instruction that's meant for your students. Let your students see your face. Let them hear your voice. Really get in there and personalize stuff. As far as, you know, flip on that webcam. Put yourself in there. Let them see, you know, again, those subjects where you want to express your enthusiasm, your passion. Let that come through in the video that you're making. Use the video to really personalize, you know, lectures in your lessons. So, you know, you can obviously voice over PowerPoint slides. There's a time and a place for that, but put yourself in there. You know, put yourself in that webcam. Use some of those engagement tools. You know, recording yourself, explaining like a diagram or just walking through basic procedures. Those are all valuable things, real simple, tangible things that you can do. We've had instructors in the past that have a unique idea of literally just running a weekly check-in with their students in that flipped model or even in a traditional like online forum. Put yourself out there. Just check in with them. Check for learning. Let them see your face. Let them see that you're human, you're real. And, you know, supplement some of those ideas. This path of assessment even, you're talking about your real-time assessment and analytics. So there's real simple ways that you can check for learning with your students in that environment, like adding those quizzes, adding key points of reinforcement, take a survey, things like that where you can get results back in real time and engage to that process. You know, the other big question is obviously, how does this look like for your students, right? The most important part, the people that are going to be watching those videos, and that's tricky. You know, a lot of things we see, this idea of just engaging, right? I think it's safe to say students coming in today, their expectations for the online courses are higher. You know, they want to interact with their professor, they want to be involved, they want to participate. There's tools out there that can help you do that. All those suggestions, videos, real-time questions, updates, they definitely can make an impact on how engaged your student can actually be from a practical level with the video that you throw out there, again, to create that meaningful class time, and actually can have a huge impact on the quality of the video you put out or maybe your institution did for their program. And specifically, obviously, with the flipped and blended learning models, you know, obviously video is kind of the backbone of that, right? So, you know, Dr. Overmeyer suggesting you can flip one lesson, you can flip an entire course, but again, you can even bring in some of that third-party stuff and talk through it and analyze it. Just, again, little biteable chunks to get you started on this process today. You know, another key thing with reaching students, obviously, this mobile, flexible world that they live in, right? They're coming in with multiple devices. They're used to maybe watching you on their phone, watching your lecture on a tablet, in a dorm room on a laptop, whatever it may be. Keep that in mind when when you're creating things. A lot of times some of the best ideas and contents are when you have learning moments when you're out in the real world. You know, we have interactivity there with the mobile devices and apps that are available that you can record yourself talking through a biology lesson while you take a walk through the park. And again, you can bring that back in and incorporate that into your lessons that are hands-on. And you know, lastly, TechSmith definitely, we believe in this. We're partners in terms of this. So much as far that we have, special educational pricing for our tools available. You can find that out on our website, and there'll be more information and links. But everything from individual levels, we have licenses that are perpetual. Our Camtasia platform, starts out at a low $179 a license, and you own it for life. There's volume programs, and there's institution-wide deployments as well too. So all those things are available. But I think we want to kind of close things out here and have some time for questions. So I will kind of turn it over to you for that final question, Andrew.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Matt. And thanks so much, Jerry, for sharing some of your experiences and setting up a flipped classroom. We still have about just under 10 minutes left for questions, so we'll go straight into those. Let me come back to you first, Jerry, with the question from the audience about what is the role that Bloom's taxonomy plays in the theoretical framework of flipping?
Yeah, that's a great question with Bloom's taxonomy, which I don't have it memorized in my head, but it basically kind of says that as you learn a new task, that you have to start off with the low-level concepts of, what is this thing? And I'm just thinking, kind of in mathematics, which I teach, is, what is going on here? And let's learn a little bit about it. And the higher ends of Bloom taxonomy are to actually create and actually to be creative and to really explore a topic. And that's what says that you're an expert at it. And I think flipped learning fits that perfectly because if you think about math classes, you probably don't remember a lot of what you did. And that's probably because you did not go very high in Bloom's taxonomy. Because you watched a lecture, you crammed enough information in your head to pass an exam, and then you moved on. But hopefully with flipped learning, you can hit those higher ends of Bloom's taxonomy. So if you put the kind of the low-level Bloom's taxonomy stuff, such as here's the information you need to know, here I'm going to work some problems. That stuff can be put on video that students can watch, and then they can do some practice. But then in class, you can say, hey, let's do this. Let's do a project where we can really get creative and hit those higher ends of Bloom's taxonomy. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, I think you did. Thank you very much. I also want to just switch over to maybe the more technical side of this. As we all know, at this point, non-traditional learners, many of them adults, are now the majority in higher education. So not all of them, if you're watching the videos at home and having to have access online from home, have you run into issues of access, particularly for adult learners, and how do you tackle that issue of access?
Well, I think, the issue of access is definitely prevalent at the K-12 level, but I think at the university I've never had anyone say that they weren't able to get access. And I don't want to be, glib towards a student not being able to afford technology, but, you can require that a $150 textbook's required for your class. So I know that nowadays you can get one of those little tablets for under $100. And so at the university level, I've never had any students say that they did not have a way to access it. I think almost all universities have computer labs and libraries where you can do stuff. Like Matt was saying, both with the TechSmith stuff and YouTube, you can access on your phones now. And kind of to expand on that, I think with adult learners, they've loved my flipped learning classes because they want to be hard workers. Some college students are kind of they haven't really grown up yet. Adult learners coming back, they finally are getting serious. but it might have been a while since they've been in a classroom. So to have these lectures, like especially in mathematics, that they can view over and over and over again, and then in class, they're working with other students and working with me there, they just love it. So I'm finding that non-traditional adult learners just seem to love this concept.
Okay, great. All right, during your presentation, you talked about a graduate student who did a flipped classroom as a sort of an experiment, and it did not go well, and he essentially just had people doing their homework in the lecture time. What are some of the other key signs that you look for as evidence that a flipped learning classroom is not working? What are some of the other key failure points that you've seen?
Yeah, well, an interesting thing with that grad student is that grad student also taught the exact same course in a traditional lecture method. And what we did is compared exam scores, and the exam scores were almost identical. So I guess the kind of twisted moral there is flipped classroom, even done poorly, is maybe just as good as the old lecture model. I don't know. But, I think you're talking about when it goes bad, or flipped learning goes bad. I mean, I think for me, in math, I wanted to have, let's do some really active, clever project in class. But sometimes I just couldn't come up with one or didn't have time for it. So what I would do is I would take the easy way out, and I would just take the 3 hardest homework problems and put them on a worksheet. And in class, we would work on that worksheet. And I'd tell my class, hey, you got 50 minutes to work these problems. I would wake up right now, because if you put these off, you're going to get stuck later. Right now, I'm here to help. Your colleagues are here to help. And I would just kind of buzz around the room like a hummingbird, helping people out. So even though my activities a lot of times were not that clever or innovative, I think just allowing them to do their homework in class, like the hard homework problems, with an expert in the room was beneficial. Hope that answers.
All right, great. Yeah, I think it did. Thank you. We probably have time for maybe 1 or maybe 2 questions before the end of the hour. I just want to let the audience know that we have received an awful lot of questions, and so we're not going to have time to get to all of them. But someone will follow up with you directly at some point after the webinar to get you some answers. So don't fret if you don't hear your question asked during this hour. So we have maybe time. We have 2 minutes left. Let me look at one other issue, which I think is probably fairly critical to a lot of the audiences. Faculty have very, very different levels of comfort with technology. Some take to it like ducks to water. Others are fairly resistant. You talked earlier about some of the incentives to get faculty to use a flipped classroom, besides letting them have maybe fewer courses or some kind of subsidy. What else can you do to get your faculty interested and engaged with this different type of teaching?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to just having some confidence in yourself, and also if you're working with people that are looking to flip, to understand that everyone does have different levels of technology. And it's one of those things where, try to find people in your department or in your school that are maybe doing these online videos and just meet with them one-on-one. I mean, I think you can attend all kinds of, training and webinars, but until you actually sit down and try to make a video, you're not going to know if it's something you can do. Looks like we got about 30 seconds left.
Yes.
So I want to push one more time for the Flipped Learning Academy Conference that we are having here in Greeley, June 8th through 10th. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be higher ed flippers all over the spectrum. We're going to be sharing research. We're going to be sharing what works, what doesn't. It's very reasonably priced. And just want to thank TechSmith for having me today. And I think
Jerry,
we are 1 hour time.
Sorry, Jerry, what were the dates for that conference again?
June 8th through 10th in Greeley, Colorado.
Terrific.
Make a family trip out of it. Come see the Rocky Mountain.
All right, so that sounds like a plan. That, unfortunately, is all the time that we have left today. As I said before, if you did ask a question and we didn't get to it, someone from the TechSmith team will follow up with you to get you some answers. And if you have additional questions, we have an email up on the screen right now that you send your questions, and once again, you'll get some answers through that. So as we wrap up, I really want to thank Jerry Overmeyer and Matt Dennis for really an excellent presentation. I also want to thank TechSmith for its support. And so one final reminder, we will be sending out an email to all attendees when the recording of the webinar is ready. So thank you to all who joined us today, and this concludes today's webcast. Goodbye.